Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. Today we're going to talk about what you do to get your content distributed far and wide. We're going to have some fun with this one. Stay tuned. I want to welcome you to another edition of Coach's Corner, Empowerment for Entrepreneurs. This one's called Properly Exposed, and it's episode, can you believe it, number 51 already. This episode is sponsored by The Marketing Network, themarketingnetwork.tv, profitable marketing training for business owners who want to get results fast. You can save 25% on your membership by using offer code COACH at checkout. Alrighty, welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. Hey, I'm Robert Imbriali. Happy to be here. Happy to have you along with me as well. Today, I want to answer the question I think that comes up really again and again and again. Actually, there was a webcast that I watched this week, and they were answering the same question. They had some interesting ideas about what I'm going to share with you. How do you get your content distributed? But I wanted to share my perspective on it. It's a little bit different. It's not out of the realm of possibility for a lot of folks, which is, I think, real important. And it is one of those things that when you start looking at your website, you start looking at, wow, I'm creating all this content. I'm writing copy. I'm sending out emails. Maybe I'm doing live videos or pre-recorded videos or both. In this case, I do both. What do you want to do? How do you get them out there without spending a ton of money? Now, I'm going to tell you that 100% free is not the answer. You got to put a little bit of money in it. And the money is just really about making the thing go, giving a little bit of momentum, if you will. So that's really important. And it's just like, it's not a lot of money. Like I said, it's going to be, $20 a week kind of thing, not tons of money. So it's easy enough for you to do. But, really what we want to look at today is getting more exposure for your content. It is the number one question that we hear again and again. So I want to go into some of the things that I do to get more exposure. And I'm going to use this broadcast or this podcast that you're listening to right here, right now. And I'm going to share with you what I do. I've got 12 steps that I take to get this out there in front of a lot of people. And you might think, well, that seems like a lot. Well, it is. But the truth of the matter is you're either going to pay a lot of money for advertising or you're going to do a lot of legwork. But the truth is you got to pay money for advertising. You're still going to do a lot of legwork because you got to know who you're advertising to and what your message is, right? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you some of the things that I do. And I got to tell you, number one, you've got to have a strategy. You just can't go into this blind and say, hey, I hope it's going to work, right? And I know a lot of people who do that. That's wrong. You really have to have a good strategy for it. You've got to be able to say, hey, I'm ready to go out there and I'm ready to do the things that's required. And that means if I'm putting together this podcast on a weekly basis, what does that mean? Well, that means that every week I have to go and I have to do certain things to make sure it gets in front of enough people. And I'm going to share with you what those things are today. So I titled this one, How Coach's Corner is Distributed. And why? Because, well, it's close to me. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I'm able to teach you what I'm doing and share with you what's working and what's not working. So we're going to go through the process today. Like I said, it's a 12-step process. There are actually more than 12 steps. I was thinking about it just before I came live. And I'm like, oh, I already put the slides together for this. But there are actually a few more steps in there than just 12. And there are going to be more going forward because social media, as you know, a lot of people will think, well, social media is kind of mature. It's not mature. It's very immature, in fact. In fact, social media is always changing, frequently changing. And what worked literally 6 months ago probably doesn't work quite as well or works differently today or doesn't work at all. You got to keep on top of it. And that's a hard thing for a lot of folks because we want to stay focused on the content. Lucky for me, the stuff that I do, the marketing that I do, the consulting that I do, the work that I do with my clients is really all about this kind of thing. So I'm kind of in it all the time. So I kind of consider myself a little bit of an expert here. I've been doing this for many years. And, literally, it's really full-time work for me to keep up with it. I was looking at something this week for one of my clients, and all of a sudden what we were doing like literally 6-8 months ago is no longer working. Some of the apps have closed down. Some of the things we're using no longer exist or have been blocked out. They no longer work. So our work here, when we're talking about distributing content, really is about, we got to get in there, and what we've got to do is we've got to stay on top of this. So I tried to create a system for Coach's Corner that's not going to take me days, weeks, months to put together and to make it work. So what I've done is I've made some of the pieces automated, which if you can do that, absolutely go for it. Automate them if you possibly can. Other things that I've done are I really don't have any input on it. I put the podcast up and all of a sudden it gets distributed on these other platforms, which I'm going to share with you here today. And it's really nice because there are more and more audiences. Every time you put it out on a different platform, you're reaching a new audience. It's one of the things I had a client come in this week. And we were having this conversation, and I said, a lot of people make the mistake and they say, I want people to come to me. I want them to come to my website. That's the most expensive marketing you can do. What? Yeah, the most expensive thing you can do is try to attract people to you. The best way, the fastest, easiest, cheapest way is to take your content and drop it into a pool where those people already exist. So podcasting, for instance, is one of those things. I do this podcast. Okay, it's streaming live on Facebook Live, and I'm going to talk to you about how I do that and where it goes from there. Then, so Facebook, I'm dropping content into Facebook. So a number of people are going to see it there. Is everybody going to see it there? Absolutely not. There are some of you who are listening to this because you picked it up on iTunes, either as an audio or a video podcast, and it was delivered to you. So I take the content and I drop it into the iTunes pool. Is it going to reach everybody on iTunes? No, but it's going to reach a new audience that I wouldn't have if I just stayed on Facebook. So then I take it and I drop it into YouTube. Few people on YouTube, of course, right? More and more people subscribe to your channel, they share it, yada, yada. And all of a sudden now your content gets a little bit more exposure. So when you look at the end of the day and you say, wow, how many of these pools can I drop the same content into so it gets more and more exposure? Then it starts to look good. And that's really what you got to look at. The way I look at it is I say, okay, how many pools can I drop my content into? Because I'm reaching a new audience every single time. And when I'm reaching that new audience, new people are coming on board, new people will subscribe, new people will end up becoming customers of mine or come to my website or sign up for my podcast or get on my email newsletter list, right? All of those things happen. And it's really about keeping that momentum, keeping that ball rolling, if you will. So let's get started. I'm going to go through the 12 steps with you. I promise not to take a very long time today. And I know a lot of people don't like to listen to long podcasts. But believe me, I can drone on for hours. I could do an 8-hour podcast and still not be tired at the end of it because I just love this so much. So how I get started. Some of you are watching live right now on Facebook. Hi, right here, that's a really good place to start. So number one for me is Facebook Live. And there's a couple of reasons why I do this. Is it because it's going to get tremendous reach on Facebook Live? Yes or no? Well, the answer there is no. It's not going to get a tremendous amount of reach. But what really is important, and I think probably the more important piece here, is that it gives me a little bit of an audience. So I'm not doing this in a vacuum. And it's really important for anybody who's a speaker. It's very difficult to speak in a microphone when there's no audience on the other side. It's very dead. It's very dry. It's boring. It doesn't really work well. So what I always suggest to people is have some sort of an audience. Even if it's your friends and family, who are watching, it's okay. Facebook Live is a great, great, great tool for that. It allows me literally to be able to put this content out there live, and a handful of people, not a lot of people, a handful of people are going to stop by and watch it live. That's great. But what else can you do, right? Once it's live, once it's streamed live, that's great. It'll live on Facebook. And what I start to do from there is I'm doing two things here. I should really clarify. I'm streaming live on Facebook, and I'm also recording this information, this content, this video. I'm recording it locally on a local computer. So I've got a very clean, not streamed copy, raw video, high quality 720p video that I can then go do other things with. For instance, upload to Amazon S3 is the people that I use to host my podcast. So the next step is I go onto my website, robertimbriali.com, and I create a blog post with an image, with some text, with some copy, some tags, some keywords, all of that kind of thing. Now, the blog post is really important because the blog post then is connected to all the different podcast sites, right? So you need to have a blog with a feed that feeds into these podcast hosts. I don't want to get too technical, but iTunes doesn't actually host the podcast. People think, oh, iTunes is going to host it. No, they don't. I host it. What I give iTunes is a list of where these files are, what they are, and where they are. And iTunes simply shares that information out with the users. Simple as that. When I post it on my blog, iTunes is notified immediately. Within 10 minutes, I can pick up my phone and I can see iTunes is already downloading the podcast. Isn't that great? So think about it this way. If you've got this thing and you're creating a video and you put it in as a podcast or an audio and you put it in as a podcast, you publish it, all the people who have subscribed to it within 30 minutes of you publishing it are already downloading it automatically onto their devices. Happens in real time. You don't have to do anything. It's just there. Then I'll get a notification that I've got a new podcast. And that's really cool. I really love that. So step 2 definitely, absolutely is the blog post. Step 3, obviously nothing more to do because the blog post is already connected to iTunes. And as I said to you before, I actually have 2 podcasts on iTunes. I have an audio version, what you see here. And I have an exact copy of this, which is a video version. Some of my listeners love to have the video version because it will play on your Apple TV, which means you can play it on a full-size television if you wanted to, which I do often with podcasts, by the way. I love doing that. So you can take the video podcast and you can play it on your television, but I also play it oftentimes on my iPad, and I subscribe to a lot of video podcasts, which download to the iPhone, and I just listen to them in the car. Even though there's video, I don't necessarily need to watch a video if it's a talking head thing. So is video really critical for this podcast? No, not at all. You can get away with listening to literally just the audio part of it and be absolutely fine. So iTunes is sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but that's not all. It goes further. So from the blog post, again, right, the feed is now connected with these other services, and one of those services is Stitcher. Stitcher is really good for those people on the Android side because you don't want to lock them out. You want to just say, hey, we're only on iTunes, and if you don't have an iPhone, sorry, you don't want that. You want to make sure that people with other, ways of reaching it, like an Android phone, for instance, have access to it as well. So Stitcher, that's great. I got listed in Stitcher, and it's the same feed that comes off my blog. So as soon as I post it, within minutes, it's up on Stitcher. People can start receiving notification there that a new version of the podcast, a new edition of the podcast has arrived. And so that's step 4. Again, these steps are easy because I'm not really doing anything. I'm just putting it in the blog. That's the big piece. Once it's in the blog, then it goes out. It also goes to Google Play Music. As you can see, that ends up there. It's also listed there. So you can get just the audio for now. They are going to come up with video. Eventually, they haven't done it from what I understand yet, although it had been promised as late as late end of last year. They said it was coming soon, but I haven't checked recently. But yeah, Google Play Music, again, for the Android crowd, for other operating systems such that you want to have access to it. So that's 6. That's really good. Number 7, it's also streamed out to TuneIn Radio. So those of you who use TuneIn, I've used that for a long time for different things. And now, it's so cool that the podcast can be there. And there are going to be new services as well that are going to start bringing, Spotify has been talking about bringing in podcasts. Right now, they're only doing some high-end stuff, but eventually we're going to be able to put that there as well. So you look at this, you think about this from this perspective. You say, okay, I'm doing this Facebook live stream. Then I'm taking the video, I'm encoding it, and I'm making an audio podcast, a video podcast. I put it on my blog, and all the rest of what I just shared with you happens automatically. There's nothing more for me to do except the initial connection to those websites. That's it. When I went to TuneIn Radio, I said, here's my, podcast. Here's what it's about. Here's the link. And within a week, it was approved, and I have nothing more for me to do. I haven't touched it in a year and a half. There's nothing more for me to do. Every time I post a new one, it shows up there. Stitcher Radio, same thing. Google Play, same thing. iTunes, same thing. So just getting the content done is important. After you get the content done, then it starts to fly. So we're going to talk about one more that I just started doing. I hadn't been doing this earlier, but I just started doing this as well, which is YouTube. There is no reason in the world why you wouldn't do YouTube. I'm doing a video podcast, so video is really good on YouTube. Now, what's cool about YouTube is when somebody subscribes to your channel and you put a new episode up, guess what they get? Within a couple of days, not right away, within a couple of days, sometimes the same day, but usually it's within a couple of days, they will receive an email letting them know that there's a new episode of Coach's Corner available for them. Not only that, and this is something I use all the time, is in your YouTube app on your mobile device, there's a button called subscriptions. You click on the subscriptions button and it'll show you the latest video from all the channels that you subscribe to, which is really great because it kind of curates it for you. It's like, these are the people I really want to see their videos, so I subscribe to their channels. And when new stuff appears, it shows up in that feed. So it's a very small feed for me. It's probably less than 20 videos at a time. It's very manageable. And I put the top things that I want in there. So when people subscribe to your channel, they'll see it in their feed, and that'll appear immediately. They won't have to wait for that one. The moment you publish it, it'll be in that feed. It's like minutes and it shows up there. So there's another one. There's step number 8 for you. Real important to do that. Step 9, obviously you want to go back into the social network. And, I post on Twitter. I have a system that will post right from YouTube or right from my Facebook feed. It'll just bump it over to Twitter, so you can see it's pretty much the same post. But I've got 18,000 plus people following on Twitter. That's going to generate some subscriptions. That's going to generate some views. Again, a free service, no point not to do it. You might as well get it done. Might as well put it on Twitter. It makes a lot of sense to do that. So again, nothing's really costing any money yet. It's just kind of like it's in the flow kind of thing. That's easy enough to do. The other thing that I'll do, go back on Facebook now that I've got this as a Facebook post, right? So when you do a live video, after the video is done, the replay is there. Then I'll take it and I'll share it with Facebook groups where I think it is valuable. So for instance, this particular one might really fit well with a group of people who are doing podcasting, because it talks about, the different ways to, get your podcast content out there. So, I can share it into groups. Not all groups will accept, posts and shares like that. But for the most part, you can find groups that will. And, I carefully join my groups and I spend time in them. So I'm not just kind of a foreigner in the groups. I often answer questions in there. I'm a little bit active when I have time. So I'm not a surprise to them when I post something. It's like they kind of know who I am and what I'm about. So that's one thing to do. The other thing to do is on Facebook, not just groups, but also pages. So I've got pages. I've got the Marketing Network as a page. I've got Coach's Corner, obviously, as a page. Coach's Corner, this one will stream live and it will be there immediately after I'm done. It'll just be there, so I won't do anything. But Marketing Network, I may need to share it. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know, these are just the pages I manage. These are my pages, right? But you can also post stuff on other people's pages. Now, there are two kinds of pages out there. It seems like if you post on some business pages, the content kind of goes off to a sidebar if you post it there. Others will post in the main content. I wouldn't worry too much about that, because if the page owner likes the content you're posting, they'll probably just reshare it. It'll go in the main feed. So I would go to other Facebook pages that you have liked in the past. Have you liked a few of them? This is really interesting. You go into your Facebook account and you look at pages, right? And it'll show you the pages you've liked, or your pages. And right next to that, you can see underlined there in blue, it says liked pages. So I have thousands of pages over the years that I've liked. I can go to any of those pages and share some of this content out where I think it's relevant. Now, I'm not talking about spamming. I'm talking specifically about sharing content that is of value to the people who would be on those pages. So if you find the content you're sharing is of value to them, go ahead, share it. It's a good thing to share. If they don't like it, they hit the delete key. That's it. Some people are really particular about what is shared on their page, and they could delete it. No harm, no foul, nothing wrong with that. Other people will love more content. I got to tell you, there's a couple of pages I run for my clients. We're dying to have more content. We wish more people would post there, but the pages are a little bit quiet. So sometimes we really appreciate, user contributed information, because it's really user contributed content. I think it is. UGC, user generated content is the acronym. Boy, got to remember all these things. It's interesting. But yeah, we're looking for that. I think a lot of pages are looking for it. So long as it's not an outright sales pitch, so long as what you're doing is actual content, has actual value, is actually sharing information, it's fine. You can share it out there. Not everyone's going to accept it on their business page, but it's worthwhile giving it a shot, because, like I said, if you don't try, no one's going to hear about you. No one's going to know about you. You're going to be an enigma. You're going to be quiet, and you don't want to be the world's best kept secret. We just don't want that at all, right? We want to make sure that it is, something that you're creating, you're spending time on. People should see it. And the other time, in step 12, let's get back to our little presentation here. Step 12 is I send an email to my list. I have an email list, And what I do is I send an email out to them. And I put the video poster there. And when they click on that, they'll go right to my blog page because that's where it is. And they can just watch it there. And under the blog page, they can subscribe in iTunes. They can subscribe on YouTube, yada, yada. All of that information, all that content's there for them. And it's a great idea because those people on your email list are probably your raving fans or people who know you the best. You might as well get the content out to them on a regular basis. So I record this typically on the weekend. That's when I have time to do it. And the email will go out either Monday or Tuesday, a few days later. If they subscribe to it, they're going to get it sooner. If they get the email again, then they've seen it twice. Not the end of the world. If they've already seen it, they'll just delete the email. It's not really a question. Now, I talked earlier about Facebook and saying, you've got to put a little bit of money behind something to get it to go. On Facebook, it used to be when you post something, everyone saw it. But what happened is there's just a mountain of content that is coming into Facebook at any given time. I mean, more than all of us could possibly ever think to consume in a lifetime. Right? So Facebook has to kind of pick and choose. And what they're picking and choosing is content that gets a lot of engagement. So a lot of likes. If you like the content, you give it a like, a thumbs up, that's really good. People like that. If you leave comments on it, the content will get shared more as well. So if you feel this is good content, write some comments, ask some questions, or, make some of your comments of what you think might work as well if I didn't cover it here already, right? Comments are really good. But what you really want to do is you want to boost that post up a little bit, either with regular, just a boost post, something simple like that, or you create it into an actual ad. What I do is I kind of do a hybrid. I boost it, and then I go into the ad manager because you got more options in there. And then I change the audience to make it fit the content of the particular podcast. So for $20, I get between 1,700 to 2,500 new views on the video. That's really good. It makes the channel look good. It makes your numbers look good because everyone can see how many people have viewed your video on Facebook. So you look at it and you say, it's $20 a week. It's, less than $5 a day. It's certainly worthwhile doing. Is it going to make you a fortune? No, but it's going to get you exposure. And again, what we're looking for here is how do we get exposure to our content? How do we get our content in front of more people? And that's how you do it. Put a little bit here, a little bit there. You drop it into this pool, into that pool, and that pool over there. You get it shared on some groups. You get it shared on some business pages. You put a little bit of money behind it. Get it out to a group of people that you feel who would be most beneficial for. And when you do that, at the end of the day, you can go down like a register sheet and add up all these things and say, wow, I got 1,500 views here. I got 20 views here. I got 50 views there. And at the end of the day, it's like, wow, that's a really nice number. And you can actually start to see people coming to your website. You can actually start to see people clicking on your links. You can see the traffic build. And over time, as you keep doing this, you pick up 5 subscribers a week. People say, 5 subscribers a week, that's really not that much. It's a couple of hundred a year. It's not bad. A couple of hundred a year, and that they like it. The content keeps going. 2 years, 3 years into it, you've got 10,000 subscribers. Now you've got something that is valuable. A lot of people just want to start at the 10,000 mark and then say, well, I'm going to start. I'm not going to do it unless I have that many people. That's where you'll fail. Because the truth is, everybody starts with a very small audience, usually 1 or 2, right? And what happens is you go forward in this, you start building it and start doing more and more of it, then the audience starts to grow, but it grows over time and it grows with you being consistent with your content. And I got to admit, I have not been totally consistent with this, and I kind of, push myself to be consistent as much as possible. It's not always possible. Sometimes there are things that are going on that are a little bit outside of my control, but I really try to make sure that I get, at least one of these done a week, and I'm going to start doing some other things as well, sort of midweek, to keep the ball rolling in that respect as well. So that's sort of my 12-step. Like I said, there's probably a lot more than 12 steps. I didn't even talk about LinkedIn. There are other social networks that are sort of bubbling up now as Facebook has kind of reached its max and people are getting tired of it and they're making mistakes. And so, it'll start to trickle down. There'll be other things that'll pop up. That's just sort of the nature of the social media world. And from that perspective, you just got to keep your eyes open. And when new things pop up, you want to give them a test. You want to get in early. And you want to start testing those markets because you never know what's going to bring the best results for you. So, don't be the person who's the best kept secret. Don't be someone who hides behind their email. Don't be someone who creates wonderful content but is too shy to share it. If you're one of those people, what I suggest you do, and this is a really good tip, hire a virtual assistant and say, here's where I want my content. Here. Here are the groups. Here are the pages I want to post it on. Let them do it. So you don't have to do it. If you don't want to promote yourself, and I clearly understand that. I know a lot of people who have that challenge, and I a little bit too. Just have somebody else do it for you. A lot of people do that, and it works. It's fine. There's no problem with that. You want to get your content out in front of people, and sometimes, the people who don't like it, if they say negative things, it can hurt. But you got to get over that too, and that's something about being a professional. It's like you have to recognize that a lot of the criticism really doesn't have anything at all to do with you. Sometimes it's really about them and not about you. So what I would suggest to you is do everything you can to get that content out there, get it shared, because it's going to make the biggest difference. So that is my 12-step program for getting more exposure. Hope you liked it. And I would appreciate your comments. I would appreciate some feedback from you. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what I left out. Maybe you do something that I don't do that I would love to hear about. Maybe I'll feature you as a guest on an upcoming version of my podcast. I would love to have that. Love to have some new guests talking about things that I don't know about or haven't tried yet. Would absolutely love to be able to do that. Okay, I want to shift gears here for a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show. Our sponsor today is the Marketing Network, marketingnetwork.tv, where you can become a better, more successful business owner with the help of our world-class instructors. This is video training, folks. This is some of the top names that you're going to see. We've got more coming, who really came into the studio and said, hey, we're going to do a video class, a mini course, as I like to call them. We're going to teach you how to be a better business owner. So Laura Rubenstein, you see her up on the top right there, social media marketing strategies, the godfather of direct marketing, Russ Von Holscher. This is video training that's available on any device at any time, 24/7, and it is really, really affordable to be involved. It is only, get this, $9.95 a month, and if you use offer code COACH at checkout, you can save 25% on your subscription. TheMarketingNetwork.tv. You're going to love it. Go have a look. All right. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you find this valuable, absolutely give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it a share, let people know that there's value in this. I would really appreciate that. And as always, if you want to email me your questions, robert@ultimatewealth.com, my email address. It has not changed for many, many years. And actually since 1999, believe it or not, it's still the same email address. And I would love to hear from you and be happy to answer your questions or feature them here in an upcoming version of this podcast. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a great week, and I look forward to doing this again with you real soon.